Hi guys, Squirrel here, and welcome to another episode of Derail Valley Overhauled. I should, excitingly, have access to Derail Valley Simulator soon, so I will bring you footage of the new version of this game just as soon as I can. In the last one, what we did was we brought a haul here, made a lot of money, and then I've done a couple of shunting jobs around the yard just to bring our cash up to 81,000. What I want to do today is something interesting and challenging. Just briefly show you where we're at. We have 81,000 in the bank. Our copay is 8,600 on a bill of about just over 10,000 at the moment. If you have a look, 10,600. So technically, if we had the service license, we could get that done for half price. So at the moment, it's not economical to clear this balance down. However, if we want to get a license upgrade, we're going to have to clear the balance down. So I'm going to take the hit. I wouldn't normally do this. If I was playing this through on my own, I would do more jobs. Basically, I would build some more cash before I do this. But I want to show you progression here. Which license do we take next? We have logistic haul, and we have concurrent job 1, and we have train length 1. Just to remind you where we are, we don't have any hazmat, and we don't have any military, nor should we yet. We're trying to get to the mighty DE6. Like, that's the game here. You can, of course, go via the steam train. If you're fairly new to the game, and by new I mean, you don't yet know the layout of a lot of these different stations around the map, I would not go near that steam train. It's 50 grand. It's fairly accessible. It's quite powerful. A D2 will haul about 400 tons up a 0.5% incline. The DE6 will haul 1,400 tons up a 0.5% incline, and the steam train will take about 1,000. So the steam train is powerful. It's just that it's a lot of it's a real handful. You've got to keep on top of it, and if you're trying to learn the stations as well and switch signals, it can get a bit messy. So I would just aim for the DE6 and come to the steam train later once you've learnt the map properly. I've laid these out here. I've chucked on the floor a bunch of things that we can't do, hazmats or whatever, long twos. We've got some steel mill runs up here that we could do, but they're not paying very well, so I'm going to ignore that. We've got some goods factory stuff that we could do here, paying about 15 grand. Bit boring. Want to show you something better. We've then got the machine factory. Now, there is a lovely one here for 52,000, but it does require us to have hazmat 1. So one option, of course, is to go down the hazmat route now and haul something. It's 400 tons. It is not small. We have long 1. We don't have a hazmat 1. If we took hazmat 1, we could haul that. That is an option. However, given what's with it, if I could pair that with something good, I might consider getting hazmat 1. But there's nothing here that makes me want to do it. Unlike this one, which I think is interesting. So this is a good haul. This goes to Food Factory in Town. If you look where Food Factory in Town is, I'll just hold that up there. Food Factory in Town is up here. We've not been there yet in this playthrough, and it is quite tricky to get to from the harbour in town. You might think about which way to go. There's a couple of routes, really. One of them is the standard one, back through the steel mill, and then down this big long slope and hang a left. That is by far the easiest route. The challenging route, if you really wanted to do it, would be east out of this harbour. And you go up this. This is quite a tricky one, this one here, particularly for a DE2. And then what you do is you hang over the goods factory. Great view over there. You hang a left, and then there's a spiral down into the goods factory. If we were going for a super challenge, I would go that way. If we were going to the military base, I would definitely go that way because you pretty much have to. But I think what we'll do is we'll just we need to grind the cash right now, so we'll stick to this one. This is definitely the quickest route up to the food factory. Which ones do we take, though? That's the question. Well, we have concurrent 1. So, in theory, there's a couple of options here. This one is a long 1, and everything else is good. So we could take any of these. We have the logistic haul license. At the moment, given our license situation, we could actually take concurrent job 2. Oops, not that one. Print. Concurrent job 2 would allow us to do any number of jobs at the same time. You see that? So if you buy this, you could take all 4 of these jobs at the same time if you wanted to. It does reduce your time deadline bonus by 5%, and it does put your copay up by 9,000. But that is definitely an option. Or we could just try and haul it as it is and just take 2 of them. So obviously those 2 are only worth 5 grand each. These are worth good money. We could take these 2 on our current license, or we could get concurrent 2 and take that one. Is it worth it? Well, put it this way. Look at the weight. 448 tons, 176 tons. We cannot haul that with one DE2. We're going to need 2 of them. If we add these 2 on here, it's another 70, 80 tons. But we've also got the weight of the second Loco if we've got 2 Locos going. It's doable taking all of this, but I just don't think for the best part of, what, 9,000? I don't think it's worth the situation yet, which would happen if we got concurrent 2, which is a 5% reduction and a 9 grand copay. Right now, I would propose that we just take these 2 and we hook up 2 DE2s and we haul it up there, and I'll show you how to drive 2 DE2s without getting this license. I could get this license, I could clear the fees right now, and I could get this license, and it would make this a lot easier. But I want to show you another way where we use 2 DE2s, we don't have this license, and we basically maximize our current copay to maximize profit before we clear the fees down. So let's get started. I'll hook these 2 up, and then I'll show you how it all works. Okay, I am just finishing off here, reversing the second locomotive into the front of the assembled train. I think I just missed that. Back a touch. There we go. Let's couple that up. Right. Let's turn this off. Let me show you what we got here. So this consist here, I found, this is logistical, and I found this over at the Sea Yard, which is the one, like the liquid loading bay. The one at the back was already here, 78. That's the big one. So I've got that at the back because it's going to pay out the most. Incidentally, to get this thing together, it already had a couple of cars in front of it that I had to haul out the way, which could be the logistics side of this. If it is, what it means is this might just be a single drop at the destination. We may not have to do anything. Sometimes you'll have to put things together before you take them. Other times you'll have to take them and split them up into the destination tracks. I think in this case it might be a single drop. But anyway, that's the one we're focused on. That's a 54-minute run. So if you find our little pocket watch, you spin that around to 54 minutes, then we can get this thing timed. So what's the plan? Well, we know that they're all going to the harbour, sorry, the food factory in town. I've got 2 locomotives. Our combined weight is 176 plus 448 tons, which is pretty much more than one locomotive can handle out of the harbour. But that's not to say it can't handle it on the flat. So here's the plan. We will have both locomotives running, and we'll run both locomotives out of the harbour all the way out of this climb here. When we make this turn here and we start to get through that triangle, from here in onwards, it's relatively flat through there, and then it's all downhill through the steel mill. It's mostly downhill through here, and it continues to be downhill down to the food factory. So really, we only need a second locomotive, more or less, for this stretch here. So what I plan to do, remember, because we don't have the license, the multiple unit license, these things are not linked. This blue data cable is not linked, which means anything we do in this one or this one will not be reflected in the other one. And that's an important thing, because when you do this, you have to remember that nothing you do in here will actually affect that locomotive there. And that's another important thing, because you need to make sure, if you've got this locomotive brake on here, you need to have it turned off if you're in the front here, because if you operate this, yeah, it will not have any effect on this one. As long as you remember that, you'll be fine. So here's what we'll do. We will drive this, and we will remote control this. So if I get the remote control out and I pair it to this one, whilst we're in here, we're going to drive this one and we'll remote control that one. Now, which one do we switch off after we get up the hill? That's the question. Naturally speaking, you would think to yourself, oh, well, I'll just shut that one down, the one at the back. I don't need that one. I'll turn that one off and I'll just use this front one. And that's fine, except if you think about it, if there was another uphill section through here, it would actually be easier if we turned this one off, because we can turn it back on again because we're stood in here. So personally speaking, I would remote control the rear one and turn this one off, just because it makes life easier to turn it back on again. The only thing I will say is when we're making this climb up here, we know the DE2 overheats a lot. We really have to keep our eye on this engine temperature. And one of the things you often have to do is effectively back off one of them while it cools down, let the other one take the strain, and then keep flipping them that way. That's particularly important when you go east out the harbour. But anyway, I've talked too much. Let's get the engine started at the back here. And we will remote control this one. So just to double check, this should be the one that operates us forward now. Yeah, you can see it's pushing. If it doesn't want to move, then either you've got the train brake on the whole thing, or more likely you've left this thing on in here. So just make sure that's off before you start wondering why it won't move. Remember, there's a lot of weight here, so give the D2 time to get moving. And one little tip is get this thing moving before you hand the job in. Now, when we go to Derail Valley Simulator, you won't really have to do this so much, but for now, that's what we'll do. So I'll just run over there, I'll hand the job in, and then we'll carry on. Right, hand that one in, and hand that one in. Oops, pick that one up. Put that on 53 minutes just so it's on a minute less. You see it was already wheel slipping there, look. It's a lot of friction just for one locomotive to deal with. So we're going to run back in here now. Now we've got this thing moving, we'll start the second engine up. And we'll start to bring the speed up. I'm using the keys here just to operate it. Now we've got that going, we'll just back that front one off, that back one off, let that cool down a little bit. We'll let this one take the load now. And we're looking for 30 k's around here, around the bends. Accelerate this one. Just be worried the wheels slip there, just back it off a little bit. Well, I don't want to use my sand yet because we're going to need it up this slope. But we should see that that one's starting to cool down slightly, that's fine. Okay, so we've got both locos running, we're doing nearly 30, absolutely perfect. Once you get to 30, you can just back off around this flat bit here. Just let the whole thing coast. Ideally, what you're looking for is when you make that final turn over here, which you can do at about 40 if you really want to, but I normally do it at 30. The back of the train needs to be going through at 30 to 40 before you flow the power. When you flow the power, you want to get a lot of power down, get your sand going, and get up that climb. You've got to build that momentum before you hit that slope, really. Just remember, you're working with a long train at this point. And also, we don't have long 2 license, but because we have concurrent 1, we're able to put together 2 long 1s, which is effectively a long 2. Which is, you know, I suppose it's a bit of a way around the system, but that's just the way it is. Right, so we'll get some power on now. We'll also bring up the rear loco. We'll get that pushing as well. Nice and steady around the flat bit. Want to be started, I'll run up somewhere here because as soon as we hit that bend, it will start to climb. Okay, so let's start giving it some juice now. Get our sand down. Get our sand down. And what we're aiming for is 40. If we can get a nice steady 40 up here, when we hit that bend at the top, it'll be the perfect speed. If it goes over 40, think about backing off. But as it starts to hit the climb now, more of the weight is now started to slow us down, so it should, hopefully, if we hold it in that position, it should be okay. But we're just going to keep our eye on these temps. The D2 is absolutely terrible for this. That one's a bit cool at the back. I'm just going to back this front one off a little bit. Firstly, to keep it under 40, and secondly, so the temperature doesn't rise too quickly. I'm going to try turning my sand off. Okay, we can get away with it at the moment. The rear one's taking the strain. If you start to get wheel slip, just put it back on again. That's a good pace, but it is starting to heat up. All good at the moment. Now, we're more or less at the top of that first slope, but the back of the train is not, so you can't back off yet. We've got to wait for the back to start coming through here before we can back off, but look at the temps now. It's not good. So I'm thinking about half the train is probably over that. Once the speed starts to rise, you know that you're over the... There you go. So we're going to back this off now. Keep the rear one working. My remote's starting to run out of battery, annoyingly. It's not a good thing. I'm just going to jump into here. There you go. It's pretty warm now, this. It's taken all the loads. So hopefully what we can do is get this one to cool off just before we get to the next climb, which comes after that 40. You really do have to be on it when it comes to this stuff. So what I'm going to do now is bring this one up. Put the sand down. Kill this one. It's got to cool down. See, this is why, even if you could consider, like if it was, say, 350 tons, a single DE2 up here would really struggle for this reason, just because of the overheating problem. But having two lets you play one off against the other. It will double the cost of your, locomotive. In fact, it won't even double it, because we're not going to use two for the whole thing. It will put the cost up though, but because of that copay, we're maximising that copay. It's not so bad. We've still got plenty of sand, so I'm not worried about the sand. Engine temperature's not an issue right now, but we are starting to climb again. Quickly jump back. You see that one's just, it's cooling off, but not quickly enough. We'll run this one for as long as we can. We'll have to bring the back one back up again. The other thing we can do is start backing this one off slightly. Let's see if we can turn the sand off. No, we can't. So if you just, sacrifice some speed, and the engine won't get as hot. We don't need to bang it up here, so we're at the point where that one's going to have to start being swapped in now. Okay, we've got good temperature on that now, so I suggest that we bring that one up, sand off, throttle it down. Get the sand on. I will have to charge this remote. I need to stand outside to charge it, that's the problem. I need to be like here in the sunlight to get it charged up. The speed around that corner, I can't remember, it's 30 or 40, but we just need to be wary of that. That battery is low. I really need to stand outside and get in the sunlight, because that is not good. Okay, we've got good speed. Just going to back off slightly. See if we can drop the sand. Yes, we can. Nice and steady. We're over the worst of it now, which is great. You would have thought this battery... There you go. I was going to say, you would have thought this battery would charge up now. Not in the tunnel, obviously, but... Good. And that's basically how you do it. You just got to run from one to the other and just make a decision about when to tag one in, tag one out. But this is good. We'll soon be at the triangle. After this bend, which I think is a 40 bend, or it turns into a 30, I think. Oh no, it is a 40 bend. After this bend, we can build up our speed. Temperature check. We can build up our speed. and then we can turn one of the engines off, basically. Okay, so we're backed off that second. Just keep an eye on the speed. There's a few things to watch. Speed is the big one. Even though we're in the front loco, that is an axle speed effectively, so it's measuring the speed of the whole train. So it's always accurate. You can always rely on it. Just bear in mind, if I'm backing off the throttle here while I have the remote, it won't affect this train. I need to drop that to operate this train. Lovely. Good temps. That should have cooled down nicely now. Yep, it's coming down. Lovely. Now the east run out of the harbour is more difficult than this because the hill is it's longer and more sustained, and you do have to really struggle when you're hauling some. Like I hauled 600 tons out of there with 2 Locos, 2 DE2s, and it was on the limit. It was, you know, one almost overheated. Let's just back off the throttle a little bit. Got a lot of slip going on through those track segments. Now, luckily for us, the Loco at the back is the one that's the coolest right now. So we should be able to switch this one off soon. The indicator really is this, like the velocity trend. If you notice, it's starting to trend upwards again. So I know the train is leveling out again, and I can probably back off and stop using the sand, because at the end of the day, sand like diesel costs money. Let's get the most out of this engine. We'll basically bring the other one up now and keep this one on just long enough to boost the speed up. Because what we're looking for now is a good speed run through here. We've got a 60 turn up there. Surprised we're not wheel slipping, but we're okay at the moment. There we go. Speed's coming up. Just keep your eye on the temperatures. You're never going to get crazy speeds up here. In a DE6, you know, we'd be doing 70 plus by now. Get some charge on that. Okay, so I'm happy with that now. I'm just going to back that off. Make sure that the other Loco can take over properly, but it should be okay. If you actually have a look, temperatures should be alright. Yeah, fine. Okay. So now I'm going to turn this one off. And we'll just ease it back a little bit. Nice 50 cruise. Well, that's it. That's basically how you do it. So, as I said, this is all downhill. We've been through here before. We're going to go this way. Going to keep it left through here, past the Overhauled North. Then hang a left. Just be careful at this junction here. It's quite a slow one, and all through here you've got to keep the speed under control. So we'll pick it up in a little bit when we're on our descent back down to the food factory. Okay, so just to show you where we are, we've gone through the steel mill. We're just going through this kind of little bend up here. While we've got a little bit of time, just got to make sure we keep left through these junctions. Having a look at where we're uncoupling. So the one on the back is uncoupling at C6I, and then the logistic is uncoupling at C9S. Just always check to see if you've got any more just after it, because the logistic ones in particular can split a load, but this one's not being split. So C6I, then C9S. And if you have a look at the food factory overview, we're coming in from the northeast, we're straight into C, so we've got to keep left, keep right into C, and then at C we're going to be going to C6I, which from the northeast is the first track on the right. Then we'll pull forward and reverse into 9S, which is the far track on the right. So, you know, I mean, I'm familiar with these stations, but you know, if you're not new to it, sorry, if you are new to it all, then, you know, do take your time to just have a quick look through it. Got to keep our speed under 60, which we are keeping left. Yeah, they can be confusing. What I would say is, with the food factory in town, level ground at 60, with the food factory in town, once you make this left turn, which is quite a sharp one at that triangle, it's about a 30 or a 40 turn. This point here is more or less, it's a slope down into the factory. You start to build up speed, and there's a lot of sharp corners. You will have to keep your eye on your speed coming down into the food factory from the northeast. That's going the wrong way. Okay, so I can see 70 limit left, followed by a 60 flat. So we're okay, speed-wise. More or less just cruised all the way down the hill. We're not really burning much diesel, which is good. So yeah, we'll pick it up perhaps on the next triangle, and I'll show you how to negotiate your way down and find your platforms. Okay, so here is the little triangle here. I had to switch the first loco back on, just because there is actually a slope just coming up to this little triangle, and it started to overheat the rear engine. Like, it could deal with it, the slope, it's just that it couldn't deal with the overheating, so it went well into the yellow. So just switched this one back on and took the load away. I'll probably just use the front loco now. I think we'll just ignore the back one since it's overheating anyway. It's a 30 limit round here, so just got to keep your eye on the speed. No, we still can't get away with that turned off. Right, now look, minus 1.9. It's a downslope gradient. I'm just going to turn this off. That way we save a bit more money. So pretty soon the speed of this is going to start running away from us. Now, I'm going to pair this loco up at the front one now. I'm not going to use the back one anymore. I don't want to be able to jump out of this thing, so I'm just going to make sure I have remote control over the front one. Now, my suggestion to you is keep your speed, a little 1 pip of train brake probably. Just keep your speed under control down here, because it is quite a steep slope, 1.9%. If you're ever coming out the food factory, you will need a bit of a run up. Right, downslope, 50 limit coming up, speed's under control. Whilst that's happening, I'm just going to quickly take a run forward. I'm just going to check the track ahead. See the 30 limit there through this tunnel? So if in doubt, add an extra pip of train brake just to keep the thing under control. It really turns around this corner. Okay, so when you make it past all of this, you're going to come to here. It's a little bit confusing when you first arrive, which is why I'm jumping ahead so much. I want to show you what's going on. There we go. So you've got to keep left initially, if you remember, and then you need to keep right. So you're coming into this bit. So this is the yard section we want, and then we want the first track on the right, I think it was, if I remember. C6I is that one there. So we need that to go left into there. And then the next drop-off will be on 9S, and you can see it's already got something on it. So when we reverse into that, that's why it's logistical. 6I, so we're going right, then left. And that should all be set correctly. Now, the train may have over-slowed down, but that's fine. We just took a bit of time out to make sure that we had the points yet. There you go, see, we're already too slow, so we'll release the brakes. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Normally, I would wait till we got a bit later on down here, but I'm familiar with the whole thing. If I was you, that's what I would do. I would just make sure you do not overspeed while you go and have a look what's going on. You still got plenty of time, you know, 20 minutes to get this thing in, so it's no big deal if your train stops here while you go and figure out what's going on. Okay, so what it should just be now is a matter of driving straight in. We've already set the points for 6i, so we'll drive straight in. We've got to figure out how many cars to decouple, drop them off, pull forward, and then reverse into 9S. Now, after you get past this southwest bit, it does slope away, so the train will start to accelerate away from the food factory. It's kind of on a slope, the whole thing. And I'm going to show you another technique, which is like a rolling disconnect, as it's called. Just keep that speed under control. So if I've been talking too much in the speeds, let's put 2 pips back on and then bring it back to 1. That should kill speed off. I don't want to go over 30 through here. So let's have a look at what we need to disconnect. We need to disconnect the rear 6 cars plus 4. So the rear 10 cars we want to disconnect. So what we'll do is if we spin this round, so it's on its biggest number, minus 21, we'll take away 10 and add 1. Why do you do that? It's just the way it works. You can work it out later, but if you want 10 cars, spin it from the back, then spin it until you get the biggest number, deduct 10, which is then 11, and add 1, which is 12. So you want this to be in position 12. And that should, in theory, if I've got the maths correct, drop off the rear 10 cars. What I suggest you do is make sure, like if you look at these, 10 cars is those coloured boxy ones, and at the back of this thing it's either going to be 3 greys or 1 red, depending on what is at the back of this. Let me have a quick look what's at the back. So it looks like the greys are here. Yeah, so 3 greys. So the one that will be at the back of this particular consist here will be, we've got 3 red, 4 red on that thing there, and 2 greens. So we should see a red car split. What's actually quite difficult is, keep the speed under control again. What's actually quite difficult is to read the number of the job on the side while the train's moving. I really wish you could do that. It would make life so much easier. But we'll just check it when we drop it off. We'll just check it. Okay, make sure your speed's under 30 when you go through this. And what you want to be doing is about 15, 10 to 15, something like that, as you go through this section. That should be enough to do a rolling disconnect. Okay, so we know that the front cars are those things. So there should be 3 flat cars followed by 4 cars approximately. So there's the 3 flat cars. Then we should have 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the rear red one there, which is the one I mentioned here. That's that red one, CBX 1116, and we should be able to verify it. Yep, 1116. So when we disconnect, I'm just going to put some throttle on now. When we disconnect, if we've got the numbers right, we should see that brake. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to brake it now. You see? So I know that that's correct. If I just touch the brake again. If I touch the brake on the front, it should reconnect it. Come on. Bit more brake. Trouble is these cars are slowing down now, you see. I just want to reconnect. I just wanted to show you that it was correct. There we go. Now we'll pull it forward. So we know we've got the correct number, or we did have the correct number. It was minus 11, minus 10, sorry, plus 1 is 12. So we know that it's that. And then this is the car where it will brake. So we keep our speed. Normally I wouldn't have done that, but I just want to show you that we had the correct calculation and we verified it. What we want to do is drop all of this off while keeping the load moving so that we can save some time. And the way that we do that is we get it rolling between about 10 and 15. And all we need is this back car to be over this sign here, 6i. At that point, we can disconnect. So this is what you want to be doing. As this comes over here now, uncouple. That train is now disconnected. This back half is now rolling. And if once it gets over this line here, just open that valve. That will let the air out, which will apply the brakes on that car. So all those cars will now stop. And the rest of this train will keep on rolling. And that allows us to come down to here and basically get ready to switch the points back the other way so that we can reverse back into 9S. But like I say, that is a downslope, so it will start to pick up speed as it comes through this section. But what we're looking to do is reverse into 9S. So we want all of these to be switched over to the left. That's 9S there. If you were doing a next drop in D yard or something, which would be at the top, what you'd have to do is keep going through C and then reverse back into D. But yeah, that's kind of advanced stuff. You don't have to do it. You can just stop the whole train, disconnect and pull away. Absolutely fine. But, you know, later on when you're up against the clock a bit, I mean, we've got plenty of time, but when you're up against the clock, You know, when you've got more licenses, your time that you're allowed is less and less. These little things of just keeping a big train moving, dropping off the cars you want, is actually really, really time saving. Particularly when going through places like the steel mill, where you can just do a rolling disconnect. Just keep the train going and just disconnect the cars you want. Right, I'm going to put that into reverse now. Do that. The other thing that you could do if you are up against time, the other thing that you can do, that's the wrong way, is what was I going to say? The other thing you can do, I've forgotten what it was now. Yeah. Oh, well, mine's gone blank. I was too busy worried about those signals. So, yeah, we'll get this. Oh, yeah, the other thing you can do is now that job is technically complete, you can also just run down here. If you're against the time, let this thing deal with the business of reversing, and you can just run off down here and hand that job in and get your bonus. You don't need to wait for it to happen. Get it in. 38 minutes out of 54. Get your money paid. You've done that job. All you've got to do is this one. Particularly handy when you're doing many jobs. Like once you've got concurrent 2, you could be doing 4 jobs at once, and you're trying to get as many bonuses as you can. That can be really handy, particularly when you're up against time or you've made a mess up somewhere. You can just go and bag the bonuses that you can while the rest of the train is getting into position. Okay, it's coming in a little bit warm. Now, we are remote controlling the first loco, so when we disconnect this, we actually want the second connection. There's 1, there's 2. So just bear that in mind. When you reverse this in, we're going to stop it there. And we're going to have to pull this thing out the way. So we'll uncouple that. Let the locomotive start to pull away. We'll go and take it over to the service yard, probably. And we'll get this job handed in. There you go, all complete. More dosh for us. So, this is where we probably think about getting the service license now. But we'll have to cover that in the next video, I'm afraid. I will now push this whole thing over to the service yard and get it off this track. But I hope you enjoyed that video, guys. Hope it was helpful in some way. Until the next one, take care. Happy training.